I'm really happy to be here with all of you today and really excited that Angela has arranged this series for us, this resiliency series of webinars with all the lovely practitioners at Urban Wellness. So you'll see the title today. I'm looking at talking about some of the foundations for health so that we can really build up resiliency from the ground up. I may get distracted from time to time, letting other people in, so please bear with me. Okay. So we want to have a good foundation for health, and sleep is a really important part of that. So today we're going to talk about how to develop good sleep habits so that we can increase our ability to get a deep and restful sleep. It is really just an essential part of our existence that we can't really avoid. We can get away with not doing it that well for a while. We can also get away with, a lack of sleep here and there, but in the long run, or sometimes even in the short run, depending on how resilient we are to begin with, we can't cope very well with a lack of sleep, and we just simply can't function if we don't get it. And then if we're not getting a good quality of sleep, we also will not feel so hot. So of course, we're talking about foundations of health. It's not just one thing. There are a few areas that I consider pretty essential for building up a good foundation for health, and they all interact with each other. They're all interconnected. So when we suffer in one area, we're likely to suffer in other areas. So if we're not getting enough sleep, we may not have enough energy to exercise. We may not have enough energy to, feed ourselves well. So all of these things sort of interact. If we don't get enough exercise, we may not sleep very well either. So today we're going to focus on the sleep aspect of that. So we know that sleep is indispensable. We absolutely need it. Our body needs that to rest and recharge. And we need it to be able to process memory and for our brain to do all of that subconscious work that we're not entirely aware of, but that is essential for us to function. So we need that sleep time. And I've put a definition of insomnia here. So just to give you a clear idea of sort of what's the clinical definition of insomnia. That said, this may apply to you, and it also may not apply to you. Even if you're just having a bit of trouble sleeping now and again, or you feel that, it could be better, you're just waking up feeling like that night's rest wasn't quite good enough, but you don't feel you fit this definition, that's okay. It's still worth working on. And a lot of the tips and techniques we're going to talk about today totally apply to you and can be used. You don't have to wait until your sleep is absolutely terrible to do some things to help improve it. And I also want to mention, if you have questions at all or need a clarification throughout this chat, feel free to interrupt and ask the question. Otherwise, we'll definitely have some time at the end for questions as well. So there are a few different causes that we've sort of discerned for insomnia. There's been a lot of study on it, but no one can quite agree on the exact cause, which makes it sometimes tricky to come up with a definitive fix for everyone's insomnia. The three main areas that people can agree on that tend to be a cause for insomnia are broken down here into three categories. So things that happen in the mind, hyperarousal, so an overactive mind that refuses to calm down when we go to sleep. I feel like this is probably the most common one that most of us can relate to. Yes, we know it's time for bed. Yes, we're laying in bed, but there's a million thoughts just running through our head and we can't slow them down. The body can also be the culprit for this. So just not feeling rested, feeling restless, like you still have to move when you know it's actually time for bed. And then there's the third category, which is anything else that may be going on with your health that can disrupt and disturb your ability to get that good night's rest. So these can be separate. Maybe you're only having an issue in one of those areas, or they could all be at play, or any mix of a few of them. So the main thing to note is that regardless of what the cause is, the techniques that we're going to talk about today can still be helpful. And then it's just a matter of bringing awareness to what the other causes are in order to troubleshoot and sort of tweak those techniques to what you need and see if there might be something else beyond that would be necessary to help you get that good night's rest. So we're going to start by talking about barriers to sleep. So there are a lot of things that can sort of get in the way. And, if we could just eliminate those, in our minds, we think, okay, then I could rest. So what are those things? Again, it's those running thoughts. That is the biggest one that tends to get in the way. So looking at ways to calm our minds and sort of purge the thoughts can be helpful. Other things that can disrupt our late night eating. So we also probably have noticed that if you try and go to sleep on a really full stomach, it's hard to get comfortable and get into a good rest, or you may feel sleepy after eating, but maybe you don't get a really good quality rest. So a nap after a huge meal feels good, but you're not necessarily going to get a good, not long night's sleep. Caffeine can get in the way, and this one's tricky too, because if we're not sleeping well, we may feel that we really need that caffeine to get going in the morning, but it can get us into this tricky cycle where then this caffeine is interfering with our ability to rest at night. We don't rest at night, we need more caffeine the next day, and so on. So with caffeine, it's very individual. I have found that that amount that helps with wakefulness but doesn't disrupt sleep, and also that cutoff time of when you shouldn't have any caffeine, past noon or past 4 p.m. or whatever it is for you. It may be past 9 a.m. that you can't handle it. So we have to build that awareness for ourselves to know how much is this caffeine stimulating me? How long is that stimulation lasting? It may not give you the same sort of get up and go as it does in the morning, but that morning coffee may still be affecting you in the evening and may still be affecting your ability to wind down in your mind and body. Alcohol intake can also affect sleep, and we do know this, and it can be a little bit counterintuitive because a glass or two of wine may make us relaxed and feel sleepy and make it easier to fall asleep. However, alcohol can also disrupt our ability to get into a deep sleep and to enter all the different stages of sleep that we need to get that deep rejuvenating rest. So alcohol is a tricky one because some people think, this drink is helping me. I can't otherwise relax my mind and my body enough to fall asleep. But we have to balance that help, that potential for help, and the ability and the potential for harm when it comes to getting a shallow sleep only and not getting that deep rejuvenating sleep that we need. Other things include messy rooms, partners, pets, that can all disrupt our space. So having a messy room just feels chaotic and just gets in the way of our ability to just feel calm as we're going into our bedroom space. Partners, sometimes that's a non-negotiable. Sometimes we can figure out ways to help each other to rest better. But if they're coming to bed at a different time, or if they're restless, or if they snore, there's always things to work around there. Pets, of course, are similar. Sometimes they're nice, cozy cuddlers, and other times they, meow or bark or what have you, and disrupt our sleep. Electronics and lights are a big one too. So anything that might be making noise or a buzzing sound, any light. So even though you have your eyes closed, having light on our bodies can disrupt our ability to really get into deep rest. Our bodies need darkness for sleep, which we'll talk about very shortly. And temperature. Sometimes the room's just too hot. Most of us are more comfortable having a cooler room to sleep in and a nice warm cover. But if you're also kind of too cold all night, you're not going to be able to have a good deep rest either. So being mindful of that and being ready to tweak the thermostat for what you need, or opening or closing a window, adjusting the heaviness of your blanket, can actually have a big impact on how comfortable we are to stay asleep throughout the night. So allergies, asthma, chronic pain, other sleep disorders, these are things that sort of fall into that category of other health issues that can get in the way. And addressing those first is obviously the best route to helping ease our sleep. And so just doing the techniques that we're talking about today directly around improving our sleep habits may not help alleviate those other symptoms, and so they may still be in the way. So it's definitely something that has to still be acknowledged and addressed. So we know that if we don't sleep well, we probably feel crummy. We probably already realize we get grumpy if we don't get enough sleep. We may notice, just that lack of energy or feeling a bit lackluster. You may not also realize how big of an impact this is having on your life. We can have increased anxiety. It can exacerbate depression. There's sort of a bi-directional thing with depression and anxiety that, you know, those type of issues make sleep worse, and lack of sleep makes those issues worse. So it can be complex, and it helps to pick things apart and address them from different angles in order to get our best possible result. We'll often have, you know, hard time focusing on our work or whatever we have to accomplish that day. But we may not realize that we're also at higher risk of accidents and injuries. So even trip and fall injuries, certainly motor vehicle accidents. These are all things that are at an increased risk of happening if we're not getting enough sleep. And that's not even to mention the sort of longer term health impacts that can happen. So consequences like increased risks around heart disease and dementia in the longer term when we're not getting enough sleep on a regular basis. So again, sleep is super foundational, which is why we're talking about it today, and hopefully going to help troubleshoot your sleep issues and help you get that good rest that your body needs. So we want to get sleep savvy. I've just broken things down into 3 categories so we can work out a strategy, try and get a lay of the land and figure out, okay, what is going on with me? What's going on with my sleep? What might be getting in the way of me getting a good quality rest? And what actions can I take to improve that? And so it's not just linear. You can take this approach, but once we've done some things and are still feeling, okay, I'm not getting results, we have to go back and say, okay, what is it that's I haven't maybe addressed? What else might I be missing? So taking action happens sort of as the last step in this diagram, but it's also something that you always have to go back to the first step and say, okay, is my quality and quantity of sleep improving? Am I feeling more rested? And there's that interplay in order to really tweak things to optimize it for you. Just following, say, every suggestion I make might not be feasible for you. So let's be strategic. Look at the things that you think are the biggest challenge for you and figuring out then what might give you the biggest yield in terms of results. So first, we want to set ourselves up for success. So we want to basically have a sleep sanctuary and a solid bedtime routine. So that is our goal when it comes to just ironing out the kinks in what might be getting in the way of our sleep. And then you're going to tweak things as needed to see what works best for you. So it might be a warmer room, it might be a colder room. It might be that you have to do a certain amount of exercise during the day, etc. So I'm going to give you a layout of a lot of possibilities, and then you're going to tweak that to figure out what works best for you, what enhances your sleep most optimally. And once you figure that out, you're going to stick to it, because regularity also matters, and sticking to a routine is the best way to make maximum use of this whole approach to sleep. So starting with your bedroom setup, you're going to want to look at the environment that you sleep in. Ideally, you want it to be tidy, quiet, and dark. Okay, those are the main things we're looking for. I mentioned before, a messy room makes us feel chaotic. It's hard to feel calm and restful in a messy space. And we also want it to be quiet. Of course, noise is going to disturb us. That can be challenging depending on where you live. If, like me, you live right beside the train tracks, it can be a little bit of a challenge because they are loud and they go all night long. So if you are having challenges with actually making your room quiet and there's things you don't have control over, you can also look at using a white noise machine or playing quiet music as you sleep, or earplugs. Earplugs can be wonderfully effective as long as you get nice, comfortable ones that aren't bothering you. That can also help with the snoring partner issue. Darkness is really crucial. I feel like this is one of the highest priority sort of categories here for a bedroom setup. Ideally, you want the room to be so dark that you can't see your hand waving in front of your face. Again, that darkness has to do with our physiology. We need that darkness in order for our brain to release the chemicals that it does need to release for deep sleep. And that helps to establish our circadian rhythm. So we want to have a really clear distinction between sleep time and wakeful time. And that happens on a physiological level that we're not aware of, but there's certain things that we need for that to happen. And one of those things is darkness. So having even lights that are maybe not bothering you and you're able to fall asleep still can disturb our brain's ability to do what it needs to do to get into that deep rest and really recharge our body as we sleep. So make your room dark. And at the very least, if this is totally not possible because you've really put a good effort into it and you can't make your room dark, then you can wear an eye mask. And at least that way the light is not going into your eyes because our eyelids aren't actually that thick. And you're going to get that deep darkness, and you really may notice that it's a lot easier to get a deep sleep just by making that adjustment. So definitely make it dark. The other thing is we want to use our space just for sleep and intimacy. That's it. We're not like eating popcorn and watching TV in bed and then just kind of throwing the bowl to the side and rolling over and expecting that we're going to get a good night's sleep. The bedroom is a place that when we walk into it, we want to feel calm and we want to know, okay, this is time for rest. We don't want to be, shoveling out crumbs from our food, and we don't want to be in that state of just watching TV where our brain is constantly being stimulated, even if we feel like we're totally vegged out. Our brain is being stimulated by the activity that we're seeing and by the light that's coming in. So we don't want to be watching TV in our bedroom, certainly not in our bed before we go to sleep. So that might not be great news for many of you because it's a really nice, comfortable place to watch TV and it's relaxing, but it's directly in interference with getting your body ready to have a nice deep sleep in that same space. So we want to make sure that that bedroom is a sleep sanctuary. It's totally dedicated to rest. So we're not going to have any stressful activities in the room either. We're not sitting on our bed and working. We're not having arguments sitting in bed. If we need to do those things, we should take it out of the room or at least not sit on our bed. So I'm going to make a little extra point here because I also realize that a lot of us may be working from home and there's a limited amount of space where we are. And so we can't necessarily have a totally separate room for our work, especially if you have multiple people trying to do work at home at the same time. So I get that. So how can we work around it? If possible, just don't work on your bed. Make your bed. That's the thing that you're going to do so it's nice and tidy and you're not going to lay on it. If you have another chair in the room, even if it's a small workspace, so that you're not sitting on your bed during time where you're working. And then making sure that you have a really clear separation between that work time and rest time. So if you're working in your bedroom during the day, you have your chair and little desk or whatever you need set up to work during the day, make sure that you make a separation. So you leave that room and do something else, hopefully a nice relaxing activity between the time that you're working and the time that you're trying to set yourself up to go to bed. And ideally also moving the work stuff. So either moving it out of the room or just tidying up the work stuff and sort of covering up the station or the workstation, or just making it nice and tidy so that you're not looking at the work when you come in to lay to bed. So we just want to do as much as we can to create a physical and psychological space and boundary between our work and potentially stressful activity and our rest and calm activity. So doing what we can to do that, it doesn't necessarily require entirely different rooms, but we just have to make sure we take that extra effort and don't take for granted, okay, well, this is all happening in the same space, so there it is. But that there are other ways that we can sort of tweak and adapt to make that separation. And again, that time that you take to move away from your work life and doing some kind of shift activity, so it might be a few stretches, it might honestly be watching a show. It might be, getting outside for a few minutes, whatever that is, just make an activity that you enjoy that's going to help you to let go of the stress of the day before you start to unwind. And that's going to be a really helpful boundary to set. And I have noted here the pets thing again. So we just want to be really honest with ourselves about, is my pet disrupting my sleep? I know they can be really great cuddlers and it can be nice to have them as you fall asleep. And so that might be the case. But if they're then waking up, moving around, asking things of you during your sleep, then they may be disrupting your ability to get into your full sleep cycle and get into that deep rest. So we really just have to be honest with ourselves and say, okay, do I sleep better with my pet or do I not? statistically, as far as the research I have seen, they tend to disrupt sleep more often than others, but there is definitely, and it has to be acknowledged, cases when pets help you sleep better. So just check that out for yourself, be aware of it. And I know that there would be an adjustment period if you decide to keep your pets out of the bedroom where they may be asking you to come in, and that can disrupt your sleep even more. But that tends to be a very temporary adjustment period that they will get used to, and then they will be very grateful and happy to have your love and attention during the day when you're nice and rested and patient with them. Okay. So timing is also important. Our body responds to regularity. So going to bed and waking up at the same time every day is the best way to, again, enhance those circadian rhythms, that clarity in our sleep time and wake time. If it's the same time, more or less every day, our body's just going to get used to it. And it's going to be easier for us to just fall asleep easier because our body's used to that rhythm. And it's going to be easier for us to wake up and get out of bed. So that can be tricky when it comes to, weekends and wanting to do other activities, but hey, score one for the pandemic because there's not much to do and there's not many places to go. So you may as well go to bed early and wake up at the same time on the weekend and then do something fun. So it is tempting to think that as adults we're exempt from this whole like regularity routine thing, but we're really not. We're the same as children. We need things to be regular and our body responds to it. So the best opportunity that we can give ourselves to sleep well is by going to bed earlier. We also get a much deeper and better quality of rest earlier in the night. So if we're able to go to bed, but certainly before midnight and as much before midnight as is feasible, that's going to give us the best opportunity for that deep rest. If we slept, say 8 or 9 hours and we went to bed at, 10 p.m. versus 2 a.m., we're going to get a much better quality of sleep going to bed at the earlier hour. So yeah, bedtime routine is not just for kids. It works for adults as well. And if you are finding that you have time settling at the end of the day, or you're finding that you're dragging yourself in the morning to get up, it is a sign that you probably need a good sleep routine, a good bedtime routine to unwind in the evening. So it may not look like bath and then story time and like a glass of milk, but it might look like that. That might be what you need. That might be what works for you. Baths are really relaxing. Reading a book is a lovely activity. It can be very relaxing to focus on something that is interesting to you, that is not stressful as part of your workday. And it is a nice activity because it's not screens in your face. So you're not having that blue light that's stimulating your brain, and you're not having that sort of dissonance that happens with TV where you feel relaxed, but your mind is actually being highly stimulated. So story time might be the right thing for you. I encourage you to try it. So we want to, for sure, at the very least, set aside stressful activities. So it's what I just was talking about in terms of having that very clear break and that clear boundary between what is my active and productive activities of the day and sleep time. And we need a little bit of a transition period. So we're going to do activities that help us to let go of that stress and productivity mindset and ease into some sense of calm and restfulness, and not just expect that we can sort of flip a switch and our body is just suddenly ready to sleep. We're going to ease ourselves into it. So we're going to set aside stressful activities. We're going to start to dim the lights. So as the sun starts to get down, we're maybe going to turn off some of the overhead lights using ambient lighting. I really encourage you to do that because it helps our body to just adapt. Just like a sunset, because we're not just outside in the natural light, we're sort of simulating that in our homes by dimming the lights in the evening. Starting to turn off some of our screens. We may not want to do this right away, we may not be ready, but at least giving yourself an hour, and the very, very bare minimum is half an hour, but like at least an hour, even longer would be great too, between screen time and sleep time. So what do you do if you just want to watch TV and then go to sleep? What are you going to do in between? Well, there's lots of other activities that you can do, like reading or some of these activities I've listed here to help relax your mind, relax your body. So we know that the hyperactive mind, the hyperactive body can prevent us from falling asleep, staying asleep, getting a deep sleep. So what are the things we can do before we actually get into bed to help calm down the nervous system, slow the mind, and relax the body? Guided meditations are, of course, a great way to do this. There's a huge variety of them. So if some of them, you don't enjoy, I encourage you to keep trying different ones until you find ones that you like. They don't have to be long, but it just helps to sort of bring that calm into the system. It helps to switch the nervous system from that stress sort of fight flight thing that happens all day long when we're keeping busy into that rest and digest, that state of calm that we need in order to get into a deep sleep. So we want to trigger that. And it's also about bringing ourselves back into our bodies. We can be so busy, go, go, go all day that we're not even aware of what's going on in our bodies. What are we feeling? What do we need? So gentle stretching or restorative yoga practice is a really great way to do that because it brings that physical awareness. It brings a little bit of motion without being really stimulating like aerobic exercise. And so that we can come back into awareness with our body. And focusing on that is also a type of mindful meditation in our brains if we're not inclined to just sitting in meditation. That's just another way to do it. The guided breathing is also another way to flip that switch in the nervous system and also bring ourselves back into our bodies. So what we're trying to do is take that scattered mind that can happen throughout the day and sort of bring it all back down, integrate things, feel a sense of calm so that when we're thinking about going to bed, we're already quite settled. I'll mention some herbal teas that you may also find helpful in calming the system as well in a couple of slides. And just a note that if you tend to get up and go pee a lot in the night, then that may not be something that you want to try, or if you do, then you can do that much earlier in the evening. But whatever it is that you do, just figure out what works and what seems to settle your body. Give it a try for, a few nights or a week or two to see if it starts to have an impact, and then go with what works. And then your body will learn through repetition that as soon as you start to do those stretches, you already automatically start to feel calm because your body knows the routine. So we are getting close to the end of the presentation. This is sort of the last tips of like, what else other than, my bedtime routine can I do to help with sleep? Well, what you do during the daytime also matters. So getting some exercise can really help. Burning off some of your fuel for one, but also because it can help reduce stress and it can improve your mood. And these are all things that are really complementary for having a good sleep. Getting sunlight can also help. So we don't want to have a bright sunlight right before we go to sleep, but we do want to have it in the morning. Just like darkness at night helps to establish those circadian rhythms, that bright sunlight in the morning also helps with that rhythm. We need wakeful time and for that to be clear and for our body to know when it's time to rest. So on these lovely sunny days, to get outside in the morning is awesome. If you aren't able to get outside, being near a window, and on those really great days, so many of which we've made it through this season, having a full spectrum light at home that you can just plug in and turn on in the morning can also be really helpful, and it helps to improve mood. It can help to combat symptoms of seasonal affective disorder, and it can really help to reinforce the circadian rhythms. And this last one, I will admit is not the thing that is my most favorite thing to say, but avoiding naps is usually good. And I really do enjoy a good nap, but when you're having trouble falling asleep at night and waking up at a reasonable time, naps usually sabotage that. It just throws off our whole cycle. We're so tired in the day that we're primed for a nap, but then we've rested too late in the day. And just like having an afternoon coffee, sometimes that just gets in the way of us being able to sleep at night. And then we're caught in this cycle where we're not going to get a good night's sleep and we're always going to feel the need for a nap. So when you're trying to reestablish that quality of sleep at night, I would avoid the naps. Once you're having a good night's rest and you're feeling that you still need a nap, that might be something worth looking a little deeper into. Or if you're still able to have that good night's rest, but you just need a little like 15-minute, half-hour nap during the day and that works for you, then fair enough. Okay, so we've gone through all of the big basics for how to tackle sleep issues. But what if you still can't sleep? So there can be other issues at play. There might be some underlying subconscious things that we're coping with or have not dealt with that's disrupting our sleep. So even if we're doing everything else right, our subconscious is so busy trying to work through that stuff at night that we're not able to get that good rest. There may be some other health issue that's getting in the way. We may have sleep apnea and no one told us and we can't tell because it's happening while we're sleeping and we don't know that it's happening. So these are all reasons to talk to a health professional that can help you figure out what else may be going on and how to address those causes as well. We can also think about other ways of going deeper to help support that subconscious work. For instance, so cognitive behavioral therapy can be very effective in insomnia, and it is something that you can do online right now. Other forms of talk therapy can really help as well, because we can't necessarily just control what our subconscious is doing. We have to find other ways of working through it. And if therapy is either not available or not appealing, there are other ways to help the subconscious mind and to support it through whatever it's working through. Things like meditation or guided relaxation. Acupuncture can be helpful for this as well because it can help the physiological aspects of what's going on when your nervous system won't calm down. But it's also an energetic type of medicine that can help to open the channels in your body that are blocked and just facilitate your body to do the work that it needs to do in order to feel safer or more able to rest. Sleep restriction, we don't have enough time, ironically, to go through, but it is sort of about restricting the amount of time that you spend in bed until you're able to use that time to sleep, and then you can sort of expand that time. So if you want to talk to me further about it, just get in touch. I will leave to Angela talking a little bit more about aromatherapy because I think she's got her talk about aromatherapy and acupoints a little in a few weeks there on the 8th. But these are a few just examples of aromas that I think are relaxing. So you can put them in a diffuser, you can spray a little bit or a few drops on your pillow or in your room before you go to sleep if you find that relaxing, or even start that in the evening as part of your wind down. It doesn't have to be these, any aroma that you find relaxing, because aromatherapy can be quite individualized as well. These are some of the teas that I would suggest. So if tea is something that you want to include in your routine, these ones in particular all have calming effects on the nervous system and so can really help with that restful sleep. The combination of passion flower, valerian, and hops all together is particularly helpful and well studied in insomnia. And I've just highlighted there a little star because if you tend to be really hot, I wouldn't recommend valerian because it just tends to be a warming herb. So if that's an issue, that might not be the one for you. And hops, yes, it's found in beer, but again, go back to what I said about alcohol, not necessarily in the form of beer because the alcohol can interfere with sleep, but hops as a tea can be really relaxing. So I'm just noticing here there are some questions in the chat. So these are some of the plants that can help with sleep. So hopefully that answers that question. And tips for how to deal with nightly menopausal hot flashes. Yes, so there are other herbs that I would recommend to help with hot flashes, but that's basically a whole talk unto itself. So I would look at working with sort of helping to balance the hormonal changes and fluctuations that are happening around menopause in order to reduce hot flashes, and that can then help get a restful sleep. So you may be doing all the right nighttime routines, but of course the hot flashes aren't going to be affected by, you know, having a sleepy time tea and doing some yoga necessarily. So I would look at, specific botanicals for helping with hot flashes. And there are certain supplements also that can help, and it kind of does depend on your sort of constitution and the way that you're experiencing symptoms on how that might help. But one thing you could do as a first go and very easily is combine any of these teas with also some sage and see if that might help as well. So we're coming up to the end of our chat here, and I just wanted to emphasize that sleep really is essential. We tend to struggle with it. Almost everyone does at some point in their life. But if we can take a bit of time and care to sort out how to do it well and what might be getting in the way of our personal ability to sleep, then we can hopefully improve that and give ourselves a chance to get that deep rest that we need that has so many rippling effects on the rest of our lives and our state of health. And I want to emphasize that sleep sanctuary and bedtime routine are really the cornerstone of achieving deep and restful sleep. And so no matter what the other factors might be they menopause or restless leg syndrome or anything like that, these strategies will still help improve your quality of rest if you're not doing them already. And then at that point, you're able to go in and fine tune things. So look at what are the specific causes of my issue with sleep and adding any acupuncture, botanical supplements, whatever, or therapies that may be helpful for that particular issue in order to optimize your sleep. So if you want to have a little bit of a reference point, you can get the sleep guide, which lays out a lot of what we've talked about today. When you subscribe on my website, then you'll get a download in your email box so that you can have this as a reference to help troubleshoot sleep. And if you feel that, maybe you've done a lot of these things or you go away from this talk and you try a lot of these techniques and you're still having trouble, certainly it is a good thing to check with a health professional to see, is there something else that's going on? If you want to speak with me, I offer free consultations so that you can figure out a little bit more about how I work and ask me any specific questions about what to expect and decide whether you want to work with me to help improve your sleep or anything else. So thank you to everyone who came today, and I really hope that this is going to help to improve your sleep so that you can get a really good solid rest tonight and every night. I am available for one-on-one appointments and talks as well, so you can always reach out to me through my website or by email.